Welcome.
How's it going, YouTube? And welcome back to the Grid, and I'm your host, Cardfight Grid. It's been pretty chilly where I've been staying at. It's been pretty cold, so today I have put together something really hot and spicy, and what I like to call Red Vaccine. Typically, it carries the same skeleton as your Marsmon and Phoenixmon decks, but this has a lot of spiciness into it for sure, and I decided to build it the way I want to, which means I have different objectives in the deck. So let's go ahead and start off with our Digitama. We're only going to be running 4, and it's going to be 4 copies of Digimon. Now, Digimon has a when attacking skill once per turn. If this Digimon has 6,000 DP or more, you get to draw a card. It's pretty good. I was going with Yokomon for a bit with the on deletion if you have a red tamer, draw a card. But a lot of decks nowadays, they have so many ways to remove your stack without even deleting it. Returning it to hand, deck, security, underneath a tamer. There's just so many ways. Even putting it underneath another Digimon, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so that on deletion Yokomon, I didn't really find it too relevant sometimes. And with this way, at least with Gurimon's inheritable, I get to decide when to proc it off. So, and we run a lot of decks, we run a lot of tamers in this deck that contribute to this inherit that lets it proc it off. So that's it for our Digitamas. And now on to our level 3s. So it is pretty cold, so we're running 1 copy of Bearmon because he's fuzzy and he's warm. Okay, no, really it's just because of the inherit. Alright, the inherit is whenever your attack will get redirected, this Digimon gains plus 3000 DP for the turn, which is pretty sick. And it's also red Digimon that has vaccine in its trait, so it kind of works out there. We only run 1 copy because we have a lot of ways to bump up DP in this deck. So that's why we only run it at 1. And for our next Digimon, we run 2 copies of Gaussmon. This Gaussmon has on your turn, your other Digimon with Gaussmon on its name get plus 2000 DP. And on top of that, on your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot reduce Digievolution cost, which is pretty good right now since all the trainings are going around. So it helps out a lot. Helps a lot going against any green deck, to be honest. So yeah, the only sucky thing is that it's only searchable by our options and nothing else really. I was jumping in between this one and Solarmon, and I just find this one more relevant in the meta now than Solarmon, but Solarmon's also a good pick and it's vaccine, so you can actually search it out, just FYI. So we're running 2 copies of him, and we're running 4 copies of BT13 Beomon. This Beomon has an on play if it'll be played by effect. You can go ahead and return a tamer with cursing in its name back to your hand to Digivolve into a Garudamon without paying its Digievolution cost and ignoring its Digievolution requirement. It also has an inherit on deletion, draw 1. So this Beomon lets us skip level 4 straight into level 5 for essentially free. It's pretty amazing, I'm not gonna lie. It's been a lot of times where I have trouble looking for a level 4 sometimes, and this Beomon just lets me go straight to 5, and it helps out a lot, as came in clutch so many times. I used to be against this card. I did not like this card whatsoever on release. I thought this card was garbage. I really did, because I was doing something else with the deck at the time. But seeing how it works, it really does buff up the resiliency of the deck. So that's why I run 4 copies of it. And now for our last level 3, we're running 4 copies of BT11 Beomon. Now this Beomon has an on play. You get to search the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 red tamer and 1 red Digimon with vaccine in its trait. It has an on deletion inheritable that says on deletion, gain 1 memory if you have a red tamer. Both Beomons have vaccine in their traits, so they're both searchable. And this Beomon is just very, very good because it searches out all your tamers and it searches out literally majority of your deck, except for our techs. And to be honest, if you want even some of your techs to be searchable, you can just switch them out for like Solarmon. So it's pretty good. That's about it. The inheritable is pretty nice, but we don't really run it too much for that. So we run 4 copies of it. That's all of our level 3s. And now to our level 4s, which I will admit it is kind of hard to find these guys sometimes. So when you have one, sometimes you actually want to keep that hand just to have one, or unless you have all the pieces to go into straight to your level 5 with skipping the level 4. But enough said, let's go into level 4. We're running 1 copy of Digimon. He's just your 1 red hybrid, and he's not searchable in the deck by Beomon. And we're running 1 copy of Bergermon from BT1. On play, you get to give one of your Digimon plus secure attack plus 1. I've actually closed out games with this card, with the effect, and actually with the card, which is funny enough. And it's vaccine traits, and it's also a bird, which actually does come in handy in this deck. Yep. And then for our next level 4s, we're running 3 copies of Grizzlymon. Why? Because he's furry. No, I'm just kidding. No, we run 3 copies for the reason being, 1, it has Raid, it's Red Vaccine, it has Beast and Traits, which is also essential to the deck, and its inheritable is the same thing as Bearmon. It's plus 6,000 DP when the attack gets redirected. So yeah, it's really good. It's really nice to actually have smaller Digimon that have the Raid mechanic, because certain decks require 2 Digimon to be on board to do certain combos. And as long as you keep on controlling their board state and not even going to security, just keep on going for their board state, people will start having hard times and they'll have to actually set up more or overcommit just to have some decent functional plays. So that's why we run 3 copies of Grizzlymon. And for our last level, we're running 4 copies of the BT11 Birdramon. Now, this Birdramon is a blocker, which is good. It is always nice to have blockers. Trust, they have become an issue for certain decks, because a lot of decks nowadays don't run too many blockers, or they run like one main blocker that can block multiple times. But yeah, no, it's nice to actually have a full playset of a low 4 that's a blocker. And it's red, it's vaccine, has burn in its trait, and also it has the inherit that's on deletion. You may play a red tamer that's a 4 cost or less for free without paying its cost, so it's pretty good. The inherit's pretty good. That's all I gotta say about it. Don't rely too much on the inherit to play your tamers out sometimes, but it's just nice to have also a blocker. More 4 copies of that. And now to our level 5s, we run 1 copy of Gravelyomon. Now, Gravelyomon has Raid in itself, and also it has the inherit your turn once per turn. When this Digimon attack is switched, you may trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. That's actually pretty handy, just for the fact that we have a lot of Raid Digimon in this deck. Half of our level 6s have Raid, so it is pretty handy that way. And just trashing the security while removing your opponent's Digimon from board, it's like a 2-for-1. You can't go wrong with that. It's too good. And also, having him have Raid comes in clutch a lot, because we can actually boost his power up a lot. He's also vaccine, and he also has Beast in his traits, and he's a red Digimon, so what's not to like? He fits in well with this deck. So we run 1 copy of him. And we run 3 copies of the BT11 Garudamon. This one also has blocker and the same inherit as the BT11 Birdramon, which is to play a red tamer for a cost that has a cost of 4 or less without paying its cost. It's really good. It has everything we like, right? Its trait, its vaccine. It literally has everything that we like about it. And you can actually Digivolve straight into this with BT13 Biomon's effect, so it's actually pretty good. Like I said, just having blockers out puts your opponent into like a weird kind of state, just because a lot of people don't run blockers, like I said, so it's pretty nice. And we also run it for the name, for Garudamon, so we can go straight into it with Biomon. So 3 copies. And for our last level 5, running 4 copies of the BT13 Garudamon. Now, this Garudamon has on play and when Digivolving, you may play a red tamer with a cost of 3 or less from your hand without paying its cost. And it also has an inherit that you may delete when one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. Its inherit, it's really whatever's. It is red, it's vaccine's traits, which is really good. But we really have it there to play that tamer. To play a tamer with 3 costs or less. I did have a build where I majority ran 4 cost tamers, so that's why I wasn't too much of a fan of this. And the Biomon, just because I'm like, this is not too relevant. It doesn't ever hit my tamer, so after fixing the deck up and making it more optimal to this combo, it actually helps out a lot. So that's why we run a whole playset. And now to our level 6s. So we run 3 copies of Phoenixmon. Phoenixmon has your turn once per turn. When your card gets removed from your opponent's security, you may activate one of the Digimon's on deletion skills. So if you haven't noticed, all of our inherits, or at least a good amount of our inherits from the bird lineup, from Biomon's evolution lineup, has all on deletions, which is pretty nice. So we have access to drawing, we have access to gaining a memory, we have access to playing tamers, and we have access to Phoenixmon's deletion, which is you can go ahead and play a Digimon with 3,000 DP or less that has Beast, Avian, Bird, Animal, and Sovereign in its traits, except for Sea Animal. I don't know why, what the guy can see animals. It's kind of messed up, but you know what? That's a story for another day. And you may play them out that have 3,000 DP or less. But for every red tamer you haven't played, you can increase the Digimon that you're going to be playing out with this effect is DP by 2,000 for every red tamer you have on board. So essentially, if you have 4 red tamers, you can actually just play another Phoenixmon, which is pretty cool. Yeah, 4 red tamers, that's plus 8,000 to the 3,000 base. So that's 11,000, yeah, you can play another Phoenixmon. And just to let you guys know, when you swing with Phoenixmon, remember that the effect resolves in this way. You first check the security, so her first effect procs off that you can use when you're on deletions. Even if the security, let's say, is just a 12,000 DP Digimon that's going to delete her, you first do that, which you can do her on deletion to bring out something, and then you can go ahead and activate her on deletion because she's going to lose that battle with the security Digimon. So you can bring out 2 Digimon. Just letting you guys know that's how it works, and that's one really dope thing about it. It's pretty cool. And yep, that's why you run 4, because you can just bring out Phoenixmon after Phoenixmon. Or that's why you run 3. Ooh, sorry, can't count. And we're also going to be running 3 copies of Marsmon. Now, Marsmon is a 4-cost evolution, red vaccine. He does not share any of the traits that we really care about. He's like Olympian and a shaman, I think. Yeah, I don't know how this guy's a shaman, but alright. He definitely doesn't look like a shaman. He looks like a gym bro, to be honest with you. Just saying. Anyways, he has the raid mechanic, and he has when Digivolving, he gains Blitz. And he also has, on your turn, once per turn, when his attack gets redirected, when it gets switched, you can actually gain 1 memory for every red tamer that you have on board. And you can unsuspend him, which is pretty nuts, to be honest. So he can swing twice, gain memory, and he has Blitz. So when you go into him, even if you pass the memory to your opponent's turn, you can still gain memory to stay on your turn. And oh my gosh, there's so much. I'm overloading here. But yeah, anyways, he's actually pretty good. We run only 3 copies though because we don't want our hands to get too clunky. And yeah, it's a pretty good card. And that's why we run 3. And for our last level 6, thanks to BT14, we're running 1 copy of the new War Greymon. This War Greymon has Warp Digivolving effect to going into an Agumon, but that's not relevant in this deck, so we're going to skip that. So you can Digivolve into him for a cost of 4, and he has when Digivolving, this Digimon gains Raid for the turn, then he can attack, so which is pretty cool. And also has when attacking, if you have a red tamer in play, just a red tamer, we run quite a few, you know, you'll see right now. He gains Security Attack +1 and Piercing. That's pretty big in my opinion. This card is super aggressive. It's just, this is a powerhouse, I'm not gonna lie, it's really good. And it has vaccine traits, so it's searchable in our deck, which is amazing. No, you cannot play it for free with Phoenixmon, but it is a-okay. As long as it's a searchable level 6, that's pretty damn good in my opinion. And luckily him and Marsmon are both searchable, but they cannot be played out for free, which is, you know, balance of the card game, I guess. But, you know, there's other decks out there like, you know, Yellow Vaccine and, you know, we're not gonna get there right now. Let's cover this for another day. It's all good. Now let's get into our tamers. We're gonna be running 2 copies of Christy. Now, Christy has the star main phase. You gain 1 memory if you have a Digimon with Avion or Burn in its traits in play. And then it also has an on play, one of your Digimon gains on deletion, you may play 1 Biomon from your hand or trash without paying its cost until the end of your opponent's turn. Yeah, this card is, this little girl's a menace. She's waving high. She's not waving by. She's waving high because you're going to be seeing her being played a lot in this deck. Like, even after you play the 2, you're going to be replaying her. It's ridiculous. This girl has helped me have a board state with 2, I think it was 2 or 3 board clears. It's pretty ridiculous, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, definitely run 2. I'm even considering to bump it up to 3, but not just yet. But 2 has been working out just fine. And once you see her, for sure, I would play her down ASAP, if you can. But yeah, that's why I run 2 copies of her, and she's a 3 play cost, which helps. And for our next tamer, we run 2 copies of Kyo. She has an on-play skill that you can search the top 4 cards for a red vaccine Digimon, then add to your hand, bomb deck the rest. And she has your turn when you would play the same traits that Phoenixmon has said: Avion, Bird, Beast, Sovereign, and Animal, except the Animal. Shake my head. Anyways, you can actually suspend her to gain Rush, which is awesome. That means whatever that Digimon Digivolves into will also have Rush. So it's pretty big. When you run 2 copies, there's another card that I kind of want to bump as well, just because the searching and the rush factor as well. I'm not gonna lie, the rush factor is pretty nice, but so far I haven't had to, just because of our text carriers with the rushing. So yeah, no, 2 has been working out pretty well, so I'll definitely stay with 2. No less though, for sure. For our next tamer, we might run a little bit too many of him, but he's been working out. We run 3 copies of the BT14 tie. Now this tie has a star main phase. One of your Digimon with vaccine traits gain plus 2000 DP for the turn. And your turn, when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, you may suspend them to actually gain a memory. It's pretty good. With this deck, I had a lot of trouble of bringing out Marsmon, and my opponent had a big monster on board, a big Digimon on board, and I couldn't raid into it. And raid was the only way that I could actually get my DP boost from my inheribles. So it kind of sucked when they swung with a big Digimon and you can't over swing it, which was funny because you're like, if it's standing, I can swing over it. But if it's on the ground, it's just like, no, we can't do that. We can't kick. Don't sweep the leg, you know? Or don't kick the line while it's down. Like, it's ridiculous. So I got irritated with that, and I was like, you know what? I want to run over everything. So yeah, that's why you run Taikamiya. On top of that, it also can give your Grizzlymon a buff as well, so it can raid even to higher DP Digimon, and it can give a buff to your Gravleomon. And it can also buff your Greymon, but I'm not gonna lie, that boy's gonna be big anyways. So yeah, we run 3 copies of him, and it's actually been working out. It's pretty nice. And it's a 3 play cost. What's not to like about that? We run also 1 copy of Matt and Sora. Matt and Sora has a skill that at the start of your main, you gain 1 memory if you have 8 or more cards in hand, and if your opponent has 8 more cards in hand, you also gain another 1 memory. It's pretty nice. Late game, this starts coming in clutch. Early game, this kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie with you. That effect is really good late because everybody's already drawing, everybody already has their engines going where their hands are getting flooded, unless their decks revolve around them having small hands. But besides that, everybody has big hands. See? Big hand. Anyways. Its second effect is your turn when one of your red or blue Digimon become unsuspended. You may suspend this tamer to return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand. Which is not too bad. Can we proc it off? Yeah, we can. With Marsmon. Which is pretty cool actually. It has came up a bit. It is nice to have if your opponent flooded the board way too quick and you're trying to make a comeback. So yeah, it does actually help. So that's why we run 1 copy. And for our last hero, we run 2 copies of Hero. These are set to 3 memory tamer. And he also has an effect when your level 5 or higher would attack. You can actually suspend him to give that Digimon plus 2000 DP. And also affects the Gamamon lineup, but we don't care about that part. As you can see, it's the DP. Like I said, I want to run over everything in this game. So even if it's suspended or not suspended, it's going to be run over by this deck. So that's why we keep on giving this deck so many DP buffs. We could play the 4-cost Tai Kamiya that gives you plus security attack 1 if you have 4 more sources, which is very doable in this deck, but we're controlling the board more with the raid mechanic. The way we end games is not really just stacking a bunch of security attack on 1 Digimon and trying to close it out right away. That's not how we do things over here with Red Vaccine. So that's why we run 2 copies of Hero. And now to our options. I got 2 copies of Crimson Blaze. This card is a 6 play cost option card that its play cost is reduced by 1 for every Digimon your opponent has on his side on the board and play. And it has an errata, and let me just read that to you, which is your opponent can't play Digimon by effects until the end of their turn. Delete all of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less. Now, the original printing on this word, I believe it says until the end of your opponent's next turn. So that's kind of messed up if your opponent checks this in security. So it's not the end of that turn that they can't play Digimon by effects, but then it goes to your turn, and then their next turn, once they end that one, that's when they can start playing Digimon by effects. It's pretty messed up the way that it's worded here, but no, it's still the end of your opponent's turn. That's why we run 2 copies of it. And for our last option card, we run 3 copies of Offense Training. You guys already know the trainings. If you don't, it's a 2-cost option card that says reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, reveal a red card, add it to hand, put the rest to the bottom. It has delay, so it goes to battlefield, not trash. After the turn that you used it, you can send it to the trash and reduce the Digi-Evolution cost of one of your Digimon by 2. So yeah, it's pretty dang good. These trainings really help out with explosive plays. So what's not to like?